like competing in front of your own home crowd and having the whole stands cheering for you.
This is just a brilliant way of putting Australia back on the map.
I'm about trying to get what I think is the greatest event in the world here for all of the people, because I think we'll just have the greatest time of our life.
Sydney's bid for the Millennium Games has captured the world's attention, but if Sydney succeeds, it won't be just a case of third time lucky. As we'll see in the 7 Nightly News special, it will be because the people of Sydney and Australia have shared the spirit with an innovative and determined bid committee.
Our bid was always to be based on what is best for the athlete.
We knew we would have more venues than the others. We knew that they were new. We knew we were multicultural and some of the others weren't. We knew we were safe.
We've been at every Olympic Games since 1896. Only 2 other countries in the world can say that.
We knew that we had very advanced infrastructure compared to some of them. We knew we had a wonderful climate. We knew that basically young people would probably prefer to come to Sydney than the other cities if you gave them a chance.
Sydney is the best bid for the athlete, for sport, and one would hope the Olympic movement. And in my mind, that's pretty hard to vote against.
It's easy to forget that 10 years ago, few countries wanted to stage the Olympic Games. Only after Los Angeles turned on the glitz and turned a profit in 1984 did world opinion change. Australia joined a rush to become Olympic hosts. Brisbane bidding for the 92 Games, Melbourne the 96, and now Sydney. Winning the Games means winning favour with the powerful International Olympic Committee, a mix of cultures, politics and sport, led by President Juan Antonio Samaranch.
Unfortunately, there's a degree of cynicism, of course, that exists about the Olympic movement and the International Olympic Committee. But many of the steps that we have taken to influence the IOC members and to gain their support is no different to what every major company across the world would do in terms of marketing.
No matter what you think of it, if you've entered the race, you've got to be a part of whatever the system is. And you know, and you've got to play in that set of rules.
Our bid has been about 2 things. Developing a very good product, which is our technical plan, and the city itself, and then going out and marketing or selling that plan, which is the same as if you were selling soap.
Selling Sydney soap to the 91 IOC members needed Olympic expertise and diplomacy. Sydney's bid company had a budget of $25 million and representatives from government, sports bodies and business. Australian Olympic Committee President John Coates, veteran of Brisbane and Melbourne bids, supplied the game plan. Australia's 2 IOC members, Kevin Gosper and Phil Coles, supplied the contacts. 18 different commissions and committees supplied the detail, and Sydney lawyer Rod McGeoch supplied the drive and public face.
I'm in a 6 passport. Now, that's quite a deal of travelling, and one of the reasons I ended up at one stage having multiple passports is because I had to leave one at home to get the visas in while I had one away, so they could only spend 24 hours at home to go out again.
I mean, at the outset of this bid, Rod McGeoch made a comment within the bid team that he wanted at the end of the bid to have met every member 15 times. Now, I don't know whether he's kept count or not, but I'm darn sure that if he hasn't, it's close, and in many cases, it's many more.
But building friendships wouldn't get the bid team far without a good technical bid, addressing the nuts and bolts of staging the world's biggest event.
And we wanted to be able to say to the Olympic movement, this is a Games for the athletes. This will be the best Games for the athlete.
Sydney had done its homework. The Homebush site was underway, many other venues were already standing, and even Australia's weakest point, our tyranny of distance, was being attended to.
We have offered to provide the costs for travel for all athletes and officials. That was a carefully developed strategy from very early on. Since then, of course, Beijing have thrown in their offer of transport, and despite the criticism at the time by Berlin and Manchester of our offer, they have now made the same offer. So we've tended to lead the way in many of those issues.
Sydney led the way too on the environment. Well aware of the IOC's push for a green image, Sydney pledged to use green technology throughout the Homebush site with the blessing of Greenpeace.
Any company who tenders for the Games will have to satisfy the environmental guidelines laid down by the Sydney Environment Committee. This is a world first.
Another ploy in the bid strategy was to woo the international sporting bodies, important members of the global Olympic family.
We've identified every major international sporting event in the last 2 years to ensure that some of us are at that event, so that, first of all, putting forward Sydney's plan at every opportunity on public occasions, handing out information, and taking an opportunity just socially to develop a personal relationship between our people, the IOC members, the sports federations.
Headline reads,
And then there was the opposition.
the paper claims it's a city of sex shows and hard porn shops. It describes Bondi Beach as enticing but deadly, saying junkies' needles litter the foreshore. Monster waves are said to claim several lives a year, and sharks lurk offshore.
From day one, the bid committee promised not to get involved in international slanging.
One is very tempted to come out publicly and sort of use all the facts that we have, where we know we have a better bid than another city, in whatever reason it might be. But we've set a standard, and I think the Olympic movement respects Sydney for the fact that we've stuck by the rules, and we've stuck by our own principles as well.
We don't run people over with tanks in Australia. We might run them over with words, but we don't run them over with tanks, and we certainly don't shoot each other.
With one exception, Sydney's team stayed out of the human rights debate, considered the weakest part of a strong Beijing bid. An issue underlined when the US Congress recommended the IOC reject Beijing. Throughout the bid, visiting IOC members and Mr. Samaranch didn't give much away. But 2 months ago, a report leaked from Germany showed Sydney's bid was going down well with the IOC. While the report didn't say we were best, commentators read as much between the lines. The leaking was a welcome boost for the bid committee, just when Manchester's bid seemed to be strengthening.
The extra news it got because of the scoop was very helpful to Sydney. That news story went everywhere, into the corners of Uruguay, Mongolia, Chile. Whoever did that in Berlin did Sydney quite a favour.
The demographic heart of Sydney. If we get the Games, the area will be called Sydney Olympic Park. Some of the sports facilities are already taking shape, an athletics track and a massive aquatic centre.
We've got 4 major swimming pools. We've got the competition pool, diving pool, training pool, and a leisure centre, which will be used for community use, and that's around this area. And then
it will, it's claimed, be the largest and the best aquatic centre in the world. Perfect for competition and great fun for families.
There's sunbaking areas, there's pools for children, there's picnic areas. So the whole thing becomes a community activity for the rest of its life.
The athletics track is being built for schools and major competitions. If we get the Olympics, though, this will be the athletes' warm-up track, 100 metres from the main stadium, 80,000 seats and a world-class venue costing $250 million, but paid for, so it's planned, by the Olympics. Surrounding the stadium at Sydney Olympic Park will be arenas for 14 of the 25 Olympic sports, the main press centre and, of course, the Olympic Village. The other Olympic venues include Darling Harbour, Eastern Creek, the Royal National Park, Holsworthy, Penrith Lakes and Sydney Harbour. Many of the facilities already exist. Some will have to be built from scratch. Expensive? Yes. But how expensive?
Just under $1.7 billion in 1992 dollars, according to a panel of independent accountants. The bulk of it, $912 million, goes on constructing the facilities, with $226 million on running the events. The $500 million Athletes Village isn't included in the budget. It'll be paid for by private enterprise and then, after the Olympics, sold as housing. $131 million goes on transport and security, $129 on administration and promotion, and $299 on contingencies and other costs. Total cost, $1.697 billion. Where does that money come from? TV for a large part. $697 million is budgeted, and 95% of that is money coming into the country from overseas. Sponsorship from the companies who pay to use the Olympic rings brings in another $424 million. Merchandising, $100 million. Ticket sales, $199 million. Part sale of the showground, $74 million. And other income such as government grants, $209 million, giving a total income of just over $1.7 billion. That's the Olympic budget with the possibility of a small profit. But all that pales against the business and jobs the Olympics can generate.
If anything is a recession-cure, it's an Olympics.
27,000 jobs in construction alone. And the travel industry. Qantas is putting money behind the bid for good reason. They believe the Games will bring in up to 2 million more visitors between now and the year 2000.
You look around for things like that which will capture the imaginations of the world, of this massive, affluent audience that's out there, and you struggle to find events of a magnitude that's going to put a country on the minds of people.